This experiment I call the phantom pencils experiment. What you're going to need is 2 pencils for this, 2 sharpened pencils, and someone else to do the experiment with. Now, of course, right now, I'm going to give you the instructions on what I want you to do with that other person. So, 2 pencils first. Be over here somewhere. Let's have a rummage. Where will they be? Oh, I can see 2 pencils here. Okay, so 2 pencils. And remember, we want them to be quite sharp. So as if you were nice sharp pencils you wanted to draw some nice fine lines with. You're going to find someone to work with. You're going to ask them if you can use one of their hands and one of their arms. So you're going to need to find someone who is prepared to roll up their sleeve for you, at least above the elbow, okay? You also want to ask them, if they can, to keep their arm as still as they possibly can, because you don't want it moving around. Best actually to get them sitting down and maybe rest their arm on a table. Now, I think I'll do it this way right now. So you're going to pretend for me that this is the arm of somebody else that you're doing it on. Okay, so ask them to rest their arm on a table if you have a table there, or just on your knee or on your lap, and ask them to keep very still and to ask them to close their eyes. It's very important they can't see what you're doing, because you're going to ask them to tell you what they can feel. Okay, so you're going to ask them to tell you what they can feel, and they mustn't look, so no cheating. This is what I want you to do. This is their arm, remember? First off, I want you just to use 1 pencil and very gently push it against one of their fingers, take it off, and ask them how many points they can feel. Maybe try 2 or 3 other places on their fingers. You could try in different parts of their fingers too, but definitely go to the fingertips. Once you've done that with 1, I want you to then get the 2 pencils together and hold them so that the 2 points line up with each other, so that if we push them on a surface, they're together. So gently push them. You can use your finger to tap them together, and do the same thing. Okay, go to there, making sure the 2 points both touch the skin. You'll be able to, if you look carefully, you'll be able to see the skin being pushed by the pencils. It'll be dented in. Okay, so definitely concentrate on their fingertips. Ask them how many points they can feel each time, remembering they must keep their eyes closed. Then move to their arm, and keeping the pencils the same, do the same thing in different parts of their arm. Just gently touch and take away. Touch, take away. Remember, we're using sharp pencils here, so please don't dig too hard. Go to the back of the arm. Then what I want you to do is make a bigger gap. Now I'm going to do it by crossing the pencils, a bit like chopsticks. I'm going to hold them like that. You may find a different way that works better for you. And do the same thing, making sure the points both touch at the same time. Okay, so off you go. Okay, remember in this experiment I showed you me doing it to myself, which isn't a very good way of doing it. Remember, you needed to find someone else. So this is what happened when we went to find an unsuspecting member of the public. So here we are with Joe, who's going to do an experiment with us. Hello, Joe.
Hi.
Now, Joe, could you do me a favour, please? Could you roll up your sleeve on that arm so it's rolled up like mine? Just push it back. That'd be great. And we're going to do an experiment using your arm here and your hands, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you if you let me hold on to your hand like that. Brilliant. Just relax your arm, and we want to keep it nice and still, no jerking about and dancing. What I'd like you to do, first off, is close your eyes, okay? And keep them closed really tightly. And what I'm going to do, Joe, just listen to my voice right now. I'm going to touch your fingertips with some pencils, okay? And as soon as you can feel how many they are, I want you just to say how many you can feel. So like if you feel one, just say one. If you feel two, two. Nice and clear so we can all hear you, right? And then I'm going to move to your arm and we'll see how we get on there, right?
Yep.
So here we go. First one.
1. 1.
Well done.
1.
Well done. You're pretty good at this.
1.
Very good. Stay there. I'm just going to adjust my position. Keep your eyes shut. Keep your eyes shut. Keep your eyes shut. No cheating.
2.
Excellent.
2.
Excellent.
2.
Excellent. Now, Joe, keep your eyes shut. We're going to move to the back of your arm. No, you can still look this way. That's okay. Okay, you can look away, are you? Right, okay. Now, remember, same rules. I'm going to touch your arm gently with the points. Tell me how many you can feel. 1, brilliant. 2. 1, excellent. 1, brilliant. Actually, Joe, turn your arm over that way for me. Brilliant. 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 Excellent. So what's going on? Okay, so how is it that Joe noticed, no problem at all, how many points we were using on his fingers at all times? He got it right every single time, didn't he? And yet when we went onto his arm, do you remember we had the points together and he got it wrong nearly every time when they were together. It was only when I put a big gap between, he could actually sense more easily there were 2. So you saw that. I'm just reminding you what happened. So what's going on? Well, think about it. Your body must have sensors all over your skin that can respond to touch. So when you get touched, they pick it up. There are hundreds and thousands of these sensors all over your body. But in some places, there's more clustered together than in others. So for example, your fingertips, of course, we use that to touch things all the time, don't we? It's a very common area we use to pick things up and touch them with. So if we looked at, say, the area on the end of a finger, there are lots more of those little touch sensors there, all clustered there, than in the same little space on the back of your arm. There won't be so many there, because you don't normally pick things up in your arms, do you? You don't normally feel things that way. So you don't tend to have so many touch sensors. There's just fewer spread out over bigger distances. So when we did our pencil here, there's so many little touch sensors on your fingertips that you can feel it easily, even when the gap between the points is much smaller. And by the way, the technical name for this is sensory acuity. So how close can those points be, and you can still feel them as 2 until you get so close that you can only feel them as 1. That's called sensory acuity. On your fingertips, you've got very good sensory acuity. You can have a tiny gap and still feel them. On the back of your arm, the acuity isn't as good. So these can be still the same distance apart. Usually, most people sense it as just 1. It's only when you've got a huge gap now, because there's a good chance they're going to push against a touch sensor on both points, because there's fewer touch sensors here. There's more likely to pick one when they're further apart than when they're very close together. By the way, one thing you wouldn't have noticed with Joe, because he didn't do this, but some people, when you do it, they take maybe a second or 2 before they give you an answer. It's almost like they're thinking about it. I don't know if you notice this. This happens a lot. So you'll do it and there'll be a little gap and then they'll say. And that's because they're not actually sure. They can actually feel 1 or 2. They're not sure, so usually they just say the one it seems most like. And it's really weird. You have to try this one yourself. And remember, all times your eyes are shut. So that's how it works. Okay, other things we could try. And again, I've already given you a few clues there in the explanation. I was talking about the distance between the points, wasn't I? How about varying that even more than we did in the experiment I showed you and asked you to do? So, put a very different length gap. Maybe you have a huge gap. You might want to tape the pencils together with a bit of sticky tape or something. So you've got a huge, huge gap. Or somewhere in between, somewhere where they're only a little bit apart. And actually measure it, because I didn't do any measuring when I did it with you. So get a ruler and actually measure the distance between them so you can write it down or remember the actual measurements involved. We've only used 2 pencils. What about using more than 2? That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? And it's quite easy to hold them together, isn't it, in your fist like that, or you can just put an elastic band around or something. Cluster a few together and try the same thing. Maybe have 3 or 4 and do the same experiment that we did earlier. Might be quite fun to figure out how you're going to separate 3 or 4 though. I'll leave you to figure that out. What about other parts of your body? Now, of course, be sensible and be safe here. I don't want you going anywhere near the face, okay? And whatever you do, remember, you're just doing it gently. How about your leg? That's quite easy. Most people are happy enough to roll up their trousers if they're wearing trousers, and if you've got some girls with skirts on, just do the lower leg below their knee. What about your feet? That'd be interesting. Might be a bit smelly, but give it a go. So your feet would be interesting. Now, one more variable for the phantom pencils is a rather interesting one. Do you remember when we asked Joe to hold his hand out and we'd done all the things to him and he could feel the points on his fingers but not on his arms? Assuming you've done this to somebody, then maybe repeat exactly the same sequence, if you can remember what you did, but tell them this time they can watch and keep their eyes open and tell you what they've noticed this time. I think you're going to find something quite interesting, but how can you explain it? That's the interesting bit. I'll leave it to you.